you.
I now recognize the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Crockett, for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. It should not be surprising that the president is doing everything possible to make it more difficult for the media to hold him accountable and for the public to be informed about his reckless and illegal behavior. Yet here we are. The Republicans have actually organized this goofy hearing to try to convince the American people that PBS and NPR are, quote, domestic terrorists or domestic threats. My apologies.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't seen it yet, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett lit it up in a House hearing. And I mean lit it up. And let me tell you, as someone who believes in the Constitution, in truth, and in public service, not corporate agendas, this moment was a breath of fresh air in the middle of the smog Republicans have been pumping into the room.
Not the incompetent, unqualified Secretary of Defense who's texting war plans to journalists. But it's y'all, PBS and NPR, the American people are supposed to be worried about. You can't make this up. It's as stupid as it sounds. The American people should be worried about the president threatening to investigate NBC for treason for reporting on his felony convictions, or arresting reporters and stripping networks of their licenses for not saying nice things about him or not using Gulf of America. The Republicans' witness, Mr. Gonzalez, went so far as to suggest that because NPR and PBS reported on the murder of George Floyd, they, quote, represent a danger to our physical health as well as to civic health of our body politics. Ms. Mayor, do you think reporting on the murder of George Floyd and highlighting instances of systemic racism is a domestic threat to America?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I believe it's our responsibility to report on all issues of interest to the American public.
Thank you so much. Ms. Kerger, what about you?
I agree. I think it's important for us to report on the important news of the day.
So let's talk about the critical role of public media. During his first term, President Trump's own Department of Homeland Security highlighted the importance of public broadcasting's role in public safety. In 2018, his administration stated, quote, PBS and local public television stations play a crucial role in protecting communities by delivering essential information to individuals and first responders. These benefits are all made possible by public broadcasting stations' unique reach, reliability, and role across America, and are especially vital in rural and underserved areas. Madam Chairwoman, I would ask unanimous consent. I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the 2018
Without objection, so ordered.
And Madam Chair, I also seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the 2019 report titled Modernizing the Nation's Public Alert and Warning System from Trump's.
Without objection, so ordered.
In the report, FEMA encouraged, quote, the use of public broadcast capabilities to expand alert, warning, and communication capabilities to fill gaps in rural and underserved areas. Mr. Ullman, what's a more significant domestic threat, reporting the murder of George Floyd or dismantling most of America's emergency communication systems?
Can you please repeat the question for me, Congresswoman?
Which one is more of a threat? Reporting the murder of George Floyd or dismantling most of America's emergency communication systems?
Dismantling the emergency systems.
And isn't it true that in Barrow, Alaska is the only, isn't it true that KBRWAM in Barrow, Alaska is the only broadcast service available in an area of more than 90,000 square miles?
That is correct. It's also the North Slope, where the majority of all the oil production that comes from Alaska takes place.
Thank you so much. And isn't it true that without these stations' broadcast, Americans in rural communities would lack access to life-saving information and public safety alerts?
That is correct.
So in your opinion, would eliminating funding for stations in rural America like WNGH, Channel 18, and the Chairwoman's District hurt Americans?
It would hurt Americans, yes.
In fact, Georgia Public Broadcasting serves as the official distributor of evacuation route information during state-ordered evacuations, and the chairwoman is here advocating to strip their funding. Look, the DOGE agenda isn't about government efficiency. It's about breeding corruption at the expense of the safety of the American people, particularly Americans living in rural or remote parts of the country. They don't care about public safety. They don't care about emergency management, and they don't care about free speech, all of which are harming American people. In fact, I'm going to skip off real quick because they have tried to come for you, Ms. Mayor, and I just want to clarify, you did not work for NPR when those statements were made, did you?
That is correct, Madam
And to
Chair.
be clear, Free speech is not about whatever it is that y'all want somebody to say. And the idea that you want to shut down everybody that is not Fox News is bullshit. We need to stop playing, because that's what y'all are doing in here. You don't want to hear the opinions of anybody else. And the Constitution says Congress shall make no law respecting or establishing of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the
gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Let's break this down. Republicans actually held a hearing trying to convince the public that PBS and NPR are some kind of domestic threat. That's not satire. That's what they actually tried to push. Meanwhile, we have real threats in our government, like a former Secretary of Defense reportedly texting war plans to a journalist. But somehow, PBS is the danger? It's laughable if it weren't so dangerous. Crockett called it out straight. This is about silencing dissent and undermining public institutions that tell the truth, especially when that truth makes certain people uncomfortable. Now, they said NPR covering the murder of George Floyd is a threat to public health and civic unity. Let that sink in. Reporting on murder and racism is what they're targeting. Not the violence itself, not the injustice, but the coverage of it. That tells you everything about where their priorities lie. Crockett pulled out receipts from the Trump administration, showing how even they acknowledge how vital public broadcasting is, especially in rural and underserved areas. PBS and local stations are literally how some people get evacuation alerts and life-saving info. But Republicans want to strip that away in the name of efficiency. No, it's sabotage. This is what authoritarianism looks like in a suit and tie. Defund the truth, silence the press, and feed people propaganda. We've seen it before, in history books and in other countries. And now, it's trying to take root here. And let's not ignore the free speech hypocrisy. They scream about the First Amendment, but only when it's Fox News doing the talking. The moment someone speaks uncomfortable truth, shut it down. That's not freedom. That's fascism wrapped in a flag. Crockett even defended a witness who was wrongly linked to past NPR comments. She wasn't having any of the gaslighting, and thank God for that. This is the kind of fire we need. Someone who not only understands the stakes, but is willing to say it. Look, as a left-wing American, I love this country. I love it enough to fight for its principles. Public media isn't a threat. It's a pillar of democracy. And voices like Jasmine Crockett's, they're defending that democracy while others are trying to tear it down. If you care about freedom, truth, and protecting the people, not just the powerful, you need to be paying attention. Because this isn't about left or right. It's about right and wrong. If you're with me, subscribe, share, and let's keep this conversation going. Because they're counting on us to stay quiet. Let's prove them wrong.